Imagine waking up, thinking it's just another day at work, only to end up rowing through a raging storm, dodging waves like a real-life action hero, and saving shipwrecked sailors with nothing but sheer determination. Sounds like something out of a movie, right? Well, one lighthouse keeper's daughter actually did it. Grace Darling did not wake up thinking, you know what? I should fight the ocean today. But by the end of the day, that's exactly what she did. It was September 1838, and Grace was just doing her job at Longstone Lighthouse off the coast of England, helping her father maintain the beacon, keeping ships from crashing, and occasionally debating a nearby seagull who seemed convinced it owned the place. Her life was simple. The lighthouse stood on a tiny rocky island, barely more than a chunk of land surrounded by endless waves. The nearest town was far away, meaning that Grace and her family were completely isolated, surrounded by nothing but the sea, the sky, and the occasional ship passing by. She had grown used to the solitude. It wasn't a normal life. Most people her age were busy in bustling towns, working in shops, meeting new people. But Grace? Her world was the lighthouse. It was steady, predictable, and she liked it that way. Until today. The morning started out calm, but something felt off. The air was too still. The sea looked uneasy, almost like it was waiting for something. And then the storm hit. A brutal wind screamed through the cracks of the lighthouse, shaking its walls. The waves slammed into the rocks, launching salt spray high into the air. The sky darkened far too quickly, thunder rolling and like distant cannon fire. This was not a normal storm. This was the kind of storm that made history. Grace stood at the window, watching the chaos unfold. She had seen rough waters before, but this was on another level. And then she saw it. Through the sheets of rain and mist, a shipwreck was getting chewed up by the rocks. The vessel, the Forfarshire, had split in half, its broken mast barely visible against the dark sky. At first, she couldn't tell if anyone had survived. The wreckage was scattered, battered by the waves, being pulled apart by the raging sea. But then lightning flashed, and she saw them, a small group of survivors, clinging to the remains of the ship, barely keeping their heads above water. Her stomach dropped. Rescue boats? Not happening. The storm was too strong, and those men? Officially out of time. She turned to her father, knowing that if someone didn't act fast, those sailors wouldn't make it. No backup. No options. And that's when she decided if no one else could save them, she would. She and her father grabbed a tiny wooden rowboat, which, let's be honest, was not built for heroics, and launched themselves into the storm. The waves crashed violently, making the journey even more dangerous. The waves acted like they wanted a rematch, rising high before crashing down, attempting to flip the boat, but Grace was ready. She rowed with the determination of someone who had absolutely no time for nonsense, dodging jagged rocks, aiming straight for the stranded sailors. Every single second felt like a fight. The rain pounded against her skin. The boat rocked violently, and each pull of the oars felt like dragging through cement. Reaching the wreck was a battle in itself. The rain blurred her vision. The wind yanked at her clothes, but she pressed on, keeping the boat steady while her father pulled survivors aboard. One by one, they rescued the stranded sailors, gripping their arms, dragging them up, steadying them against the relentless tide. But they weren't in the clear yet. The return trip was a disaster waiting to happen. The waves refused to cooperate. The current tried to pull them off course, and the boat felt like it was being held together by sheer willpower. Grace refused to let panic take over. She focused on rowing, each pull of the oars fueled by the fact that failure was not an option. By the time she made it back to shore, against all odds, every single sailor was alive. Grace collapsed onto the shore, her body shaking, her breath ragged, while the rescued men sat there trying to process what had just happened. The lighthouse, meant only to guide ships, had become the vessel that saved them. And from that day on, Grace Darling became a legend of the sea. Subscribe for more.